Chapter 1035. Thinking that the nine-clawed golden dragon was so terrifying, Li Changsheng also felt a sense of crisis in his heart. He was sure that the nine-clawed golden dragon had surpassed him by many levels. It was definitely not an existence that he could fight against now. It seems that I was careless. With this nine-clawed golden dragon, I won't be able to get away with it today. Li Changsheng thought. He clenched the ardent dragon spear in his hand and injected the power in his body into the spear to resist the nine-clawed golden dragon. With the injection of Li Changsheng's power, the six-clawed golden dragon, which was about to collapse, instantly gained new vitality. It let out a long cry and instantly shattered the falling golden light. In the next moment, Li Changsheng's face suddenly showed some understanding. This nine-clawed golden dragon did exist, but it was in the depths of distant space. Otherwise, with the power of this nine-clawed golden dragon, as long as it appeared, it could easily obliterate him. After figuring this out, Li Changsheng regained his confidence. He held the ardent dragon spear in his hand and rushed toward the Shinryu sect leader. The Shinryu sect leader did not expect that Li Changsheng would become lively again under the pressure of the nine-clawed golden dragon. However, the dragon ancestor, who he did not even know in which space-time, would definitely not appear to help him fight against Li Changsheng. A huge handprint instantly enveloped Li Changsheng. This handprint was similar to Li Changsheng's great heaven-raising handprint, even though it was a different method. In terms of the level of magic, it was impossible to distinguish the better and the worse. This kind of cultivation method relied on crushing the enemy with powerful strength. Obviously, the opponent also saw that Li Changsheng's realm had not reached the celestial immortal realm, so he wanted to use absolute strength to defeat Li Changsheng. Li Changsheng sneered and directly took out the ardent dragon spear in his hand. A dazzling golden light appeared, and at the tip of the ardent dragon spear, a golden sun emitted a dazzling radiance. The transparent handprint collided with the golden sun. The golden sun only shook a few times, and the handprint was offset. Dragon spear, ardent sun, Li Changsheng shouted. The small sun turned into a huge fireball and flew out of the vision, heading straight for the Shinryu sect leader. The Shinryu sect master's expression finally changed as he faced the huge fireball that was hurtling towards him. Originally, he thought that by relying on his realm and strength, he would be able to crush Li Changsheng. However, only now did he realize that Li Changsheng was far stronger than he had imagined, especially the fireball that was crashing towards him. Its terrifying power and scorching temperature seemed to be able to melt and shatter everything. Open. The leader of the Shinryu sect was finally going all out. With a loud shout, he instantly transformed into a golden true dragon. This true dragon had 5 claws and emitted a terrifying aura. Baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, it charged directly into the fireball. Rumble. With a loud bang, the fireball exploded. Sparks flew everywhere like a meteor shower. Chen Xian's face was also filled with shock. The Shinryu sect leader's true dragon bloodline had definitely reached an extremely pure level. Now that he had transformed into a true dragon, his strength was countless times more terrifying. Good one. This aroused Li Changsheng's fighting spirit even more. Holding the ardent dragon spear, he directly rushed towards the true dragon. He wanted to be a dragon slayer. Li Changsheng struck out with his spear, and a golden light tore through the sky. The 5-clawed golden dragon that the Shinryu sect leader had transformed into was pierced between the eyebrows by Li Changsheng's spear. It let out a terrifying roar, and the dragon's body kept swaying, directly smashing a mountain next to it into pieces. At this moment, a black shadow suddenly rushed out of the void and rushed towards Li Changsheng. It was the guardian of the ancient road. He had been hiding in the dark, and at this moment, when he saw the fierce battle between Li Changsheng and the Shinryu sect leader, he chose to launch a sneak attack. He didn't care about the guardian of the ancient road's sneak attack at all. A sword light slashed down from the sky and slashed towards the guardian of the ancient road. Before the guardian of the ancient road could get close to Li Changsheng, he was sent flying by the sword light. At this moment, the five-clawed golden dragon that the Shinryu sect leader had transformed into was still struggling. The huge dragon's body smashed everything around it into pieces. One could see with the naked eye that red light flew out of the Shinryu sect leader's body and merged into the ardent dragon spear. Gradually, the aura of the Shinryu sect leader became weaker and weaker, while the light of the ardent dragon spear became brighter and brighter. Under the situation, the Shinryu sect leader's body finally slowed down a lot. The golden dragon phantom on the ardent dragon spear had completely changed from 6 claws to 7 claws. "Break!" Li Changsheng shouted. The five-clawed golden dragon's body was constantly shrinking. Boom! Suddenly, he transformed back into his human form, grabbed Li Changsheng's spear, and pulled it out from between his eyebrows. Then, his whole body turned into a golden light and fled into the Shinryu sect. At this moment, the guardian of the ancient road, who saw that the situation was not good, also turned around to escape. However, Li Changsheng's aura had already locked onto him. The moment he was about to escape, the ardent dragon's spear stabbed out. A terrifying rumbling sound accompanied by a golden light whistling out, instantly piercing the guardian of the ancient road's body. Then, the guardian of the ancient road's body dissipated bit by bit, turning into black smoke and disappearing in front of Li Changsheng's eyes. Li Changsheng couldn't help but frown. The palm just now was enough to extinguish the guardian of the ancient road's life force, but he still felt a little strange. The guardian of the ancient road didn't die so easily. However, Li Changsheng couldn't care less at this moment. The Shinryu sect master had run inside, and he hurriedly chased after him. The Shinryu sect master was a very terrifying enemy. Under the ardent dragon spear, even the true dragon bloodline in his body was absorbed by the spear. In the end, he broke free from the ardent dragon spear's shroud and fled inside. If such an enemy wasn't eradicated, then even if he left the Devil Sky Star field in the future, the Chinese people would still suffer his revenge. His body turned into a green light, and he chased after the Shinryu sect master into the Shinryu sect. Wherever he went, if he encountered any Shinryu sect's disciples who came out to intercept him, Li Changsheng would not hesitate to stab with his spear, exploding them into a bloody mist. Wherever he went, the blood mist would spread. Who knew how many Shinryu sect's disciples were killed by Li Changsheng? However, when he reached the innermost part, he lost track of the Shinryu sect master. Li Changsheng was sure that the Shinryu sect master had escaped inside. But why did he suddenly disappear? Li Changsheng looked at the deepest part of the Shinryu sect's divine temple. He felt that the aura of this divine temple was very strange. He descended from the sky, walked step by step to the entrance of the divine temple, and pushed the door open. Got it. An ear-piercing sound was accompanied by a cloud of dust. Things like the dust removal array were nothing to them. So how could there be dust? The moment the door opened, Li Changsheng saw the statue of a 9-clawed golden dragon enshrined in the divine temple. It was exactly the same as the 9-clawed golden dragon in the depths of the void. However, this divine temple wasn't very big, so it could be seen at a glance. There was no trace of the Shinryu sect master. Where did he hide? Chapter 10:36. Li Changsheng scanned every corner of the temple with his divine sense. Unfortunately, he could not find any trace of the Shinryu sect master. How could he just disappear into thin air? Li Changsheng began to search in the temple. Sometimes, what one's divine sense detected might not be true, because there were many things in this world that could deceive divine sense. Li Changsheng felt that the Shinryu sect master had disappeared into thin air, and the secret lay in this temple. However, after circling around and frowning more and more, he still could not find anything. Finally, he looked at the statue of the 9-clawed golden dragon. He felt that it had something to do with this statue. Since I can't find your hiding place, I'll just blast you out. For Li Changsheng, there was nothing that could not be solved with one punch. If there was, he would use 2 punches. He took out the ardent dragon spear, aimed at the 9-clawed golden dragon, and stabbed it directly. Boom! The turbulent spear force, accompanied by a rotating golden light, blasted into the body of the nine-clawed golden dragon. However, the nine-clawed golden dragon did not shatter. Instead, Li Changsheng felt a strong, tearing force pulling his body. Then, his body involuntarily floated toward the nine-clawed golden dragon statue. Then, a golden light flashed in front of him, and he arrived in an unfamiliar environment. This seemed to be a small world. This world was covered in green grass, blue sky, and white clouds. The air was filled with the aura of spiritual energy. It was like a paradise on earth. It seems that the Shinryu sect master escaped into this small world. But where is he? Li Changsheng spread out his divine sense and spread it in all directions. He found that this world was very big, and his divine sense could not explore it completely. Such a small world, the so-called small world, was not small compared to a big world like Earth. But as long as you are in this world, I don't believe that I can't find you. Since his divine sense could not explore the entire world, Li Changsheng planned to use the dumbest method, which was to search every inch of this world over and over again. With that thought in mind, his body flew up and swept forward like a big bird. Looking down, the vast grassland stretched as far as the eye could see. At this moment, Li Changsheng also discovered something strange. Ever since he had appeared in this small world, he had seen many green plants, blue skies, and white clouds, but he had not seen any living creatures. There seemed to be no living creatures in this world. Li Changsheng kept moving forward, but the more he flew, the more confused he became. After flying for such a long time, all he saw was a field of green grass, but there was still no change. What was going on? If he continued to fly like this, he was afraid that even if he flew for 10 days to half a month, there would still be no change in front of him. Li Changsheng suddenly stopped in his tracks. No, this is very wrong. Could this be an illusion? Li Changsheng suddenly had an idea. He raised the ardent dragon spear in his hand and thrust it forward. Rumble! The turbulent fist force directly tore a hole in the space in front of him. Then, Li Changsheng saw the scene in front of him, which was like a broken mirror. Hula! It shattered. Li Changsheng found himself in a deep pool. The surrounding turbulent black gas carried the sound of ghosts crying and wolves howling. It was as if there were countless eyes staring at him in the dark. Could this be an illusion again? Li Changsheng raised the ardent dragon spear again and thrust it forward. But this time, it was not like a broken mirror like before. The spear force blasted a path through the fog, and there was a shrill scream, but he could not see what creature made it. This should not be an illusion. Li Changsheng withdrew his divine sense and began to walk forward step by step. All he could see was endless fog, and the ground under his feet had an unpleasant smell. There was a faint crying sound coming from the stone wall. He walked for more than an hour, but he was still at the bottom of the valley. I don't know how deep this abyss is, no. It's still not right. Li Changsheng heard the sound of crying coming from the wall. He suddenly let out a loud shout, and his body burned with raging flames. The moment the flames burned, the scene in front of him began to distort, and then completely dissipated. He appeared in a green mountain. The river flowed slowly, and the trees on the mountain were lush. From time to time, the roars of wild beasts could be heard. It was as if he had come to the ancient times. Li Changsheng held the ardent dragon's spear tightly, and thought that it should be an illusion. Suddenly, a huge crocodile rushed out from the river. It opened its ferocious mouth, and each of its fangs was like a sharp knife. This crocodile's body was filled with a terrifying bloody aura. Li Changsheng did not hesitate to stab the ardent dragon spear into the crocodile's lower abdomen. Then he saw a little bit of golden light fusing into the ardent dragon spear. The energy of this light was very small, but he could clearly feel that the ardent dragon spear in his hand seemed to have improved a little. This is not an illusion, but a real crocodile. This crocodile has the bloodline of a true dragon hidden in its body, so it can help the ardent dragon spear to purify it. Li Changsheng was surprised. He was sure that this was not an illusion, but a real small world. It seems that the previous two illusions were just a test for me. Li Changsheng understood this point and released his divine sense along the riverbank. The moment he released his divine sense, his expression changed. He found several auras, each of which was incomparably exuberant. They were countless times more terrifying than the crocodile he had just killed. Moreover, these auras seemed to belong to a few colossal beings. Is this really a small world from the ancient times? Li Changsheng followed his senses and came in front of a small hill. The hill was covered with fiery red grass, which was gently swaying like flames. In fact, the fiery red grass contained pure fire spirit energy. However, Li Changsheng did not pay attention to the grass. Instead, he stared at a cave under the hill. As if sensing Li Changsheng's arrival, a flame suddenly spewed out from the cave and rushed towards Li Changsheng. Li Changsheng casually gathered the flame into his palm and refined it. At this moment, at the entrance of the cave, a huge snake head was staring at Li Changsheng. This was a fire-attributed python, and Li Changsheng found that there were two slight bulges on the python's head, which looked like dragon horns. In the next moment, without waiting for Li Changsheng to do anything, the python had already rushed out of the cave and pounced towards Li Changsheng. On the python's body, flames were burning fiercely. Li Changsheng raised the ardent dragon spear and thrust it out. In an instant, the python's thorns exploded, and then a little red light merged into his ardent dragon spear. There was no doubt that this python also had the bloodline of a true dragon. The crocodile he had just killed, plus this fire python, and, in the divine sense, those powerful auras seemed to have the chi of a true dragon. Do all the creatures in this world have the bloodline of a true dragon? Chapter 10:37. All the creatures in this world seem to have the bloodline of the true dragon. What kind of small world is this? It must have something to do with the true dragon clan. Li Changsheng's heart was filled with doubts and puzzlement. At this time, a hissing sound came from the sky. A monster with wings swooped down towards Li Changsheng's position. A pair of claws that seemed to be cast from steel were filled with a cold aura. It grabbed towards Li Changsheng's head. It actually regarded Li Changsheng as its prey. "You're courting death," Li Changsheng coldly shouted, raised his fist, and smashed towards the sky. Under this punch, the sound of metal colliding rang out, and a series of sparks burst out. The monster was also sent flying by Li Changsheng's punch, and once again flew into the sky. This was similar to the Western lizard dragon. It had two large wings that were somewhat similar to the wings of bats. There were two dragon horns on its head, and its huge eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty and ferocious aura. After being sent flying by Li Changsheng's punch, the lizard dragon seemed to know that Li Changsheng was not to be trifled with. It just refused to leave and continued to hover above Li Changsheng's head. "You're courting death," Li Changsheng coldly snorted. He stomped on the ground and flew into the sky. Seeing Li Changsheng rushing towards it, the lizard dragon once again clawed at Li Changsheng's head with its steel claws. At this time, Li Changsheng raised the ardent dragon spear in his hand and smashed it towards the steel claws. With a kacha sound, the sturdy steel claws were instantly shattered. The lizard dragon roared, obviously in unbearable pain. While Li Changsheng and the lizard dragon were fighting, countless auras below were quietly watching the battle. These creatures were obviously very intelligent. They also noticed the existence of Li Changsheng, an outsider, and regarded Li Changsheng as their prey. The lizard dragon was completely enraged by Li Changsheng. It raised its head to the sky and let out a roar. It opened its mouth and spat out a gust of wind, which formed a tornado in the air. He actually knows divine abilities? Not simple. Li Changsheng waved the ardent dragon spear in his hand and smashed it out. The tornado was actually smashed into pieces by his ardent dragon spear. At the same time, Li Changsheng was galloping in the sky. He raised the ardent dragon spear high above his head and ruthlessly stabbed down at the lizard dragon's head. The lizard dragon let out a blood-curdling scream that spread out in all directions. It continued to struggle, and even though its head had been pierced through, it was still alive. Li Changsheng pulled out the ardent dragon spear and threw it into his mouth. Suddenly, the ardent dragon spear turned into a golden light and rushed into the lizard dragon's stomach. Piercing through the lizard dragon's back, bits of red light fused into the ardent dragon spear. As for the lizard dragon, it fell from the sky with a plop and finally lost all signs of life. The moment the lizard dragon fell, Li Changsheng clearly felt that many terrifying auras in the surroundings were instantly hidden. Li Changsheng sensed that the power of the ardent dragon spear had increased by a lot. This was a paradise for the ardent dragon spear. Li Changsheng smiled. Under the cover of his divine sense, he found that there was a powerful creature hiding in the surroundings and immediately rushed over. That creature seemed to have sensed Li Changsheng's approach and saw a mountain explode from middle. A creature that looked like a giant bear but had the head of a dragon let out an angry roar, as if warning Li Changsheng. This bear-like creature had already witnessed the scene of Li Changsheng killing the lizard dragon, so it was very afraid of Li Changsheng. It issued a warning, hoping that Li Changsheng would not approach. Just now, when he directly exploded the mountain, it was to show off to Li Changsheng. In this regard, Li Changsheng just sneered disdainfully. The strength of this creature was indeed not ordinary, but it was far from enough to scare him. At that time, when Li Changsheng fought with the lizard dragon, these creatures also wanted share of the loot. In other words, Li Changsheng won in the end. If Li Changsheng lost, they would have swarmed up and wanted to eat Li Changsheng. Obviously, this was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. The weak would be devoured and treated as prey. Since I've entered such a world, if I don't upgrade the ardent dragon spear to the 8th claw, I'll be sorry for myself. Li Changsheng coldly snorted, ignored the warning of the violent bear, and walked towards it step by step. When the violent bear saw Li Changsheng walking towards it, its eyes first showed some fear. Then it was completely stimulated. It suddenly dug its claws into the ground, jumped more than 10 feet high, and slapped down at Li Changsheng with its huge claws. This creature obviously did not have the ability to fly, but its strength was definitely more than 10 times stronger than the lizard dragon's. No wonder the entire mountain was blown apart by it. Li Changsheng was sure that with this claw, a mountain would be smashed to pieces. So, it's a strength-type contestant. I like it. Li Changsheng actually put away the ardent dragon spear and punched forward. The violent bear was originally most afraid of Li Changsheng's ardent dragon spear. When it saw Li Changsheng put away his weapon, a hint of ridicule appeared in its eyes. But in the next moment, when Li Changsheng's fist collided with its huge claws, the ridicule on its face came to an abrupt end. The moment the two of them collided, a terrifying force burst out from Li Changsheng's fist. Although Li Changsheng looked like an ant facing a giant, when compared to the tyrant, Li Changsheng looked like a giant. But as someone who cultivated the indestructible body, his strength was absolutely terrifying to the extreme. With one punch, the violent bear's huge claws exploded from middle. Bang! The palm and the entire arm exploded into a bloody mist. The violent bear immediately let out a furious roar. The loss of its arm did not make it retreat, but instead aroused its ferocity. It opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Li Changsheng. Disgusting. Li Changsheng had already competed with it in terms of physical strength. He knew that although the violent bear was strong, it was far from being his opponent. Naturally, he did not have the mood to continue playing with it. He directly took out the ardent dragon spear and pressed it against its mouth. The bloody mouth could no longer be closed. In the next second, Li Changsheng raised his foot and kicked the violent bear's lower abdomen. The violent bear, which was like a small mountain, flew into the air. The ardent dragon spear was still stuck in its mouth. Li Changsheng punched out from a distance. The mighty fist force just happened to hit the ardent dragon spear. Suddenly, the ardent dragon spear pierced the opponent's throat horizontally. Following Li Changsheng's will, the ardent dragon spear suddenly became 10 times bigger and protruded from the back of the throat. Then, the violent bear fell to the ground after struggling for a while. It couldn't be any more dead. Li Changsheng walked over and put away the ardent dragon spear. At the same time, the blood-shadowed doppelganger flashed, and the violent bear's body turned into ashes. After killing the violent bear, Li Changxing's gaze turned to another existence hidden in the mountain. The moment Li Changxing's gaze fell, he saw the mountain split open. A leopard-like thing turned into an afterimage and fled into the distance. At the same time, countless figures fled from all directions. Obviously, Li Changxing's ferocity had completely frightened the creatures in these worlds. Chapter 1038. Li Changxing was like a tiger that had barged into a flock of sheep. The ferocious creatures in this small world turned into sheep and fled in all directions. With Li Changxing as the center, the surrounding mountains kept exploding, and terrifying figures fled in all directions. In the sky, there were also many figures that were far away from Li Changxing's position, almost within a few minutes. With Li Changxing as the center, there were no more creatures within a radius of more than 10 miles. Was it over just like that? In the next second, Li Changxing's body turned into an afterimage as he chased into the distance. There were wild beasts filled with the bloodline of the true dragon everywhere. This was simply a heaven-sent opportunity to upgrade the ardent dragon spear. How could he give it up just like that? In the distance, a lizard-like creature was crushing a path on the ground with its 4 claws. Whether it was a huge tree that required a few people to wrap their arms around, or a mountain that was dozens of feet tall, it did not dodge at all. It just charged straight ahead and smashed everything into pieces. This showed how strong its physical body was. However, Li Changxing had already locked onto it. At this moment, Li Changxing was flying in the air. He aimed at the lizard's location and shot out his spear. Following an explosion, the large lizard did not even have time to react before it was blasted apart. Wisps of red bloodline power merged into the ardent dragon spear. After Li Changxing killed the lizard, he flew in another direction. Wherever he passed, no wild beast could escape his killing. This was a hunt where the strength was not equal at all. Li Changxing was like a killing god from hell, constantly reaping lives. After a day, the golden dragon, transformed from the ardent dragon spear, had completely changed from 6 claws to 7 claws. Li Changxing could clearly feel that the ardent dragon spear had become stronger. 2 days later, Li Changxing could clearly feel that there were fewer wild beasts with the bloodline of the true dragon in this small world. However, he still kept hunting. Finally, when he caught up with another dragon that was hiding in the pool, a figure appeared in front of him. It was the Shinryu sect master. This is a pocket dimension created by the ancestors of the Shinryu sect. Every beast here has the potential to become a real dragon. Li Changxing, you've gone too far. Really? Li Changxing grinned. Perhaps this is a gift that your Shinryu sect ancestors prepared for me. Shinryu sect master, since you've shown yourself, I'll take your life. With that, Li Changxing directly took out the ardent dragon spear. A 7-clawed golden dragon pounced towards the Shinryu sect leader. Who would have thought that the Shinryu sect leader would suddenly turn into nothingness and disappear without a trace? So it's just a doppelganger, something that hides its head and shows its tail. Li Changxing shook his head. He wasn't disappointed that he couldn't kill the Shinryu sect leader. He picked up the ardent dragon spear and continued hunting. This was because he also realized that if he wanted to force the Shinryu sect leader to show himself, hunting beasts might be the best way. For 3 consecutive days, countless beasts with the bloodline of the real dragon died under Li Changxing's spear. The golden dragon's 8th claw was already in its embryonic form. However, Li Changxing had almost wiped out all the beasts with the bloodline of the real dragon in this pocket dimension. Li Changxing flew for more than half a day and didn't see a single beast. However, as he continued hunting, he realized that the terrain of this pocket dimension seemed to be getting lower and lower towards the center. Finally, Li Changxing chose to fly towards the center when he couldn't find a single beast with the bloodline of the real dragon after circling around a few times. As he flew towards the center, the terrain became lower and lower. For hours later, he he found an abyss in front of him. The abyss was shrouded in fog. When Li Changsheng appeared there, he felt as if a pair of cold eyes were looking at him from the abyss. There's something strange in this abyss. Li Changsheng didn't know what was inside. Even when his spiritual consciousness penetrated into the abyss, he didn't notice anything. However, he was sure that there was definitely something inside. This was a kind of intuition. Perhaps it was because of his skill and courage. So no matter what kind of threat there was below, Li Changsheng didn't hesitate to jump into the abyss. He wanted to see what was at the bottom. The whistling wind slipped past his ears. He let himself fall freely and fell to the bottom. This abyss was extremely deep. Li Changsheng fell for a full minute. One had to know that 1 minute was definitely a long distance. When Li Changsheng's feet stepped on solid ground, he saw that he seemed to be in a huge canyon. In the deepest part of the canyon, a pair of cold eyes were looking at him. This was a huge monster. Its huge beard hung on the ground like a pillar. Each of its eyes was the size of a house. In particular, its 2 huge horns were like 2 towering trees. This was a dragon, a real dragon. Li Changsheng looked at the creature in front of him. It had a terrifying pressure on its body. This might be the dragon's power. The 2 pairs of eyes looked at each other. After a long time, the true dragon blinked its eyes. Li Changsheng clenched the scorching dragon spear in his hand. There was a faint sense of excitement in his heart. He recalled what the Shinryu sect's sect master had said before. Every creature in this small world had the potential to become a true dragon. In front of him was obviously a true dragon that was born in this world. This true dragon was undoubtedly very powerful. Li Changsheng's gaze subconsciously shifted to his claws. 5 claws. 5 claws. It was already an emperor among the true dragons. Any higher would be an extraordinary existence. If I can let the scorching dragon spear absorb the power in this true dragon's body, will it grow an 8th claw? Or even a 9th claw? Li Changsheng's heart was burning. If an ordinary person were to face a real dragon, they would probably be in awe, fear, and even their souls would leave their bodies. However, Li Changsheng seemed to have seen a huge treasure. Li Changsheng slowly raised the scorching dragon spear in his hand. At this moment, he could clearly feel the true dragon's anger. In the eyes of the true dragon, Li Changsheng was an insignificant human, and he actually tried to kill it. This was a challenge to its dignity. At this moment, the true dragon moved. The dragon's head, which had been motionless all this time, suddenly rose. Under the huge dragon's head, Li Changsheng was like an ant facing a mountain. Nonetheless, this was only a head. The rest of its body was hidden in the darkness. Li Changsheng gripped the scorching dragon spear tightly and was ready to fight at any time. This true dragon was undoubtedly powerful, but Li Changsheng was still confident that he could kill it. His fighting spirit was rising, and his breathing became rapid. Nevertheless, just as Li Changsheng was waiting for the true dragon to attack at any time, the true dragon suddenly soared into the sky and flew out of the abyss. While Li Changsheng was dumbfounded, it escaped. Chapter 1039. Li Changsheng was completely dumbfounded. That was a true dragon, yet it chose to run away instead of fighting. Where's your pride as a true dragon? Where's your courage as a true dragon? Where's your dignity as a true dragon? Li Changsheng was speechless. 10,000 alpacas were running through his mind. By the time he came to his senses and soared into the clouds to give chase, the true dragon was already nowhere to be seen. Why is he so cowardly? I'm so disappointed. But now that the true dragon has run away, how am I going to find the sect master of the Shinryu sect? No. Li Changsheng suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Why is that true dragon's aura so familiar? He's the sect master of the Shinryu sect. The so-called sect master of the Shinryu sect is originally the true dragon of this world. He is a true dragon that took human form. No wonder I couldn't find the sect master of the Shinryu sect when I entered this world. It turns out that he's been hiding here all this time. Li Changsheng sneered and began to search. As long as the Shinryu sect's sect master was still in this world, he could not escape from his senses. While Li Changsheng was fighting a battle of wits and courage with the Shinryu sect master in the Shinryu sect's small world, the date of the battle between the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu and Li Changsheng had arrived in the outside world. On this day, countless experts from Devil Sky Galaxy had gathered at the peak of the Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. It was going to be an earth-shattering battle. The Imperial Emperor of the Diyu dynasty was definitely one of the top existences in this world. Originally, they had wanted the younger generation to deal with the trial takers of the ancient road. But in the end, the younger generation was useless and had been slaughtered by Li Changsheng. Now, even the strongest experts from the Devil Heaven Star region had joined the fray. Everyone in the Devil Heaven Star region was paying close attention to this battle. However, they waited from morning until night, but they still didn't see Li Changsheng. What's going on? Where did the trial takers of the ancient road go? Could it be that he's too scared to fight? What a coward. Countless people were talking about it. Even after the sun had set, Li Changsheng did not appear. Sitting on the top of the mountain, the Emperor of Great Yu, clad in a dragon robe, had his eyes closed. At this moment, his abyss-like eyes opened, filled with anger. Li Changsheng actually stood him up. This Li Changsheng, I originally thought that he was a respectable opponent, but now it seems that he is just a coward. Slowly, the Emperor rose to his feet. Below stood a dense crowd of armored soldiers. Each of these soldiers had terrifying strength. The reason why the Diyu dynasty was able to become a top power in the Devil Sky Star field was because of the strength of the previous emperors and the terrifying strength of the generals. Since this Li Changsheng is a coward and doesn't dare to show himself, then pass down my order. Slaughter all the Chinese people's tribes. After saying that, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu walked down the mountaintop and floated away. Since the last battle with Li Changsheng, he had exposed the Chinese people's tribes. Now, it was normal for him to vent his anger by killing the Chinese people's tribes. After the Imperial Lord of Great Yu left, the generals immediately led their troops to the Chinese people's tribes. At this moment, Ji Ning, the Patriarch, and the others were sitting in a room. Patriarch, do you think that Mr. Li and the Imperial Lord of Great Yu have already decided the victor? The Patriarch looked at the sun that had completely set and nodded. Yes, the day is over, and the result of the battle should be revealed. If Mr. Li wins, then our Chinese people will no longer have to hide our names and can walk openly in the Devil Sky Star field. Because a trial taker who set foot on the ancient road will return sooner or later. No one wants to offend such an expert. If Mr. Li loses, then our entire Chinese people's tribe will be buried with him. Patriarch, do you think Mr. Li will lose? The Patriarch shook his head. I don't know, but no matter if Mr. Li wins or loses, he is the pride of our Chinese people. Mr. Li's divine power is unparalleled. I believe he will win. Ji Ning clenched his fists with a determined look on his face. The Patriarch patted his head. Yes, Mr. Li will win, he also said with a smile. At this moment, a clansman hurriedly rushed back. Patriarch, not good. Not good. What's wrong? Seeing the clansman's terrified look, the Patriarch and Ji Ning's hearts skipped a beat. Could it be that Mr. Li lost? I didn't expect the heavens to not bless us Chinese people. As the Patriarch's words fell, the clansman hurriedly shook his head. No. Then, could it be that Mr. Li won? Ji Ning and the Patriarch's faces instantly lit up with excitement again. The clansman still shook his head. No, Mr. Li didn't even appear at the mountaintop. The Great Yu Imperial Lord waited for him at the mountaintop for a day, but he didn't see him. He flew into a rage out of humiliation, and before he left, he gave the order to flatten our Chinese people's tribe. Right now, the army sent by the Great Yu Imperial Lord is already 100 miles away from our tribe. With the marching speed of the Great Yu Dynasty's army, it will only take half an incense stick's worth of time for them to reach here. What? Mr. Li didn't participate in the battle? The Patriarch was dumbfounded. Ji Ning was also dumbfounded. Impossible. Mr. Li is not a coward. Ji Ning shook his head. The clansman sneered. Facts have proven that he is a coward. Previously, he acted with great fanfare and exposed our Chinese people to the entire Devil Sky galaxy. Now, when he heard that the great Yu Imperial Lord wanted to challenge him to a battle, he was so scared that he went into hiding, leaving us Chinese people to face the wrath of the great Yu dynasty alone. This Li Changsheng is really not a good person. While they were talking, a troop of cavalry appeared on the horizon. Their iron hooves landed on the ground, producing a rumbling sound. The Chinese People's Tribe was completely surrounded by the great Yu dynasty's army. Order the warriors to go out and meet the enemy, the patriarch said loudly. Although he knew that with the strength of the people in his tribe, facing the cavalry of the great Yu dynasty was like throwing an egg at a rock, they would definitely not wait for death. Even if they were to die, they would die with dignity and backbone. Yes, patriarch. The clansmen left in a hurry. The entire Chinese People's Tribe began to get busy. At the same time, the patriarch looked at the approaching cavalry in the distance and muttered to himself, "Mr. Li, did I really misjudge you?" At the same time, in the secret realm of the Shinryu sect, Li Changsheng grabbed the dragon's tail and pulled out a 5-clawed golden dragon. The huge body of the true dragon was struggling under Li Changsheng's hand, but it could not break free. It let out a furious roar. "Li Changsheng, don't go too far. Today is the day of the battle between you and the great Yu Imperial Lord, and yet you are still wasting time with me here. Because of your absence, the great Yu Imperial Lord has ordered people to deal with the Chinese People's Tribe. I'm afraid it won't be long before the entire Chinese People's Tribe is razed to the ground." Upon hearing the words of the patriarch of the Shinryu sect, Li Changsheng's movements froze. He said coldly, "Are you telling the truth?" "Of course it's true. Let me go and save your clansmen." Upon hearing this, Li Changsheng became anxious. However, he did not let go of the patriarch of the Shinryu sect, as he was told. Instead, he grabbed the patriarch by the tail and smashed him to the ground. Boom! With this smash, the entire mountain range collapsed. Then Li Changsheng leaped up, rode on the true dragon's neck, and shouted, "Take me out of the secret realm and fly to the Chinese People's Tribe. If the Chinese People's Tribe is destroyed, I will kill you." Chapter 1040. In the Chinese People's Tribe, the 9 divine generals of the great Yu dynasty stood in front of the tribe with sabers in their hands. The dense cavalry of Great Yu had completely surrounded the Chinese People's Tribe, and not even a fly could escape. Each of the 9 divine generals was emanating a terrifying aura. They looked at the tribe expressionlessly. In their eyes, the Chinese people were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The patriarch walked out with Ji Ning and the warriors of the tribe. Looking at the 9 divine generals of the Yu dynasty standing in neat rows, a hint of bitterness appeared at the corner of his mouth. With his strength, any of the divine generals could easily cut him in half, but what could he do? He could only choose to meet them head-on. "What do you want?" The patriarch took a deep breath and asked. "Of course, we're going to kill you." The leader of the divine generals was clad in golden armor, which reflected golden light under the sun. There was a hint of mockery at the corner of his mouth. In his eyes, the most powerful patriarch of the Chinese People's Tribe was just an ant. "Since you want to kill us, then bring it on." The patriarch clenched the sword in his hand. Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well die a heroic death. The Chinese people lived in this world, and they were an alien race in everyone's eyes. What was there to be afraid of if he died in a fierce battle? Of course you're going to die, because this is the order of our emperor. But isn't it too easy to kill you? I'm going to chop off the heads of your people one by one and pile them up on the ground into a pyramid. When all the heads of your people have been chopped off, I'll chop off your head and put it at the top. The Chinese people are the remnants of evil, and they deserve to die. The patriarch's eyes turned red when he heard the divine general's words. A warrior could be killed, but not humiliated. It was one thing for the divine general to kill him, but to kill him in such a way was simply abominable. "Let's start with the kid next to you." The divine general pointed at Ji Ning, who was standing next to the patriarch, with a cruel smile on his face. Hearing that the other party wanted to kill him, there was no fear on Ji Ning's face. He stood up without hesitation, puffed out his chest, and held his head high. Kill. No matter how many people you kill, the backbone of the Chinese people will not be broken. We Chinese people are proud and unyielding. Why should we fear death? The other party didn't seem to have expected that a child like Ji Ning would have the courage to face death. However, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Do the Chinese people even have a backbone? If you Chinese people have a backbone, then why doesn't Li Chongqing dare to accept our emperor's challenge? Why did he choose to be a coward and not dare to show his face? The Chinese people are nothing but cowards. When the divine general finished speaking, Ji Ning immediately clenched his fists. At the same time, his eyes were filled with sorrow. Yes, why didn't Mr. Li appear? He's the person I respect and admire the most. Was he really a coward? A coward? He brought shame to the entire Chinese people. At this moment, hatred suddenly rose in Ji Ning's heart. He hated himself for meeting Li Chongqing in the first place. He hated himself for bringing Li Chongqing back to his clan. In the end, he had implicated the entire clan. He had misjudged Li Chongqing. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. He only felt that there was no way to vent his anger. At this moment, the divine general had slowly pulled out the long knife in his hand. In his eyes, the Chinese people were no different from beasts. They were all alien races. Killing Chinese people was like killing cattle and sheep. There was no psychological burden. Child, you have a backbone. But remember not to be born among the Chinese people in your next life. The other party had completely pulled out the knife. The clan leader took a step forward and said, "If you want to kill him, you have to get through me first." "Huh, I can't believe you're rushing to your death. However, I won't kill you. I'll let you know that sometimes life and death are not in your own hands. Even if you want to die, it's not up to you." As soon as he finished speaking, the other party raised his hand and struck out with his palm. The Chinese people's clan leader was sent flying by the force of the palm. He spat out blood and struggled a few times, but could not stand up. "Let's see how you can stop me now." He raised a long knife in his hand. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion behind him. "Look, what's that? It looks like a dragon. That dragon is flying towards us. It doesn't look like a flood dragon. It has 5 claws. Could it be a real dragon?" Even in the demonic Sky Star Zone, real dragons were only legends. Most of the people saw flood dragons, so when they saw a real dragon flying towards them, everyone was surprised. The divine general who raised the long knife in his hand could not help but look back at the sky. Sure enough, he saw a real dragon flying towards them. However, he was not an ordinary soldier after all. Even in the face of a real dragon, he remained calm. In particular, he saw a person riding on the real dragon. It should be someone's mount. To be able to ride a real dragon as a mount, the other party must not be an ordinary person. Looking at the real dragon flying straight towards them, he could not help but say loudly, "We are the 9 great divine generals of the Dayu dynasty. We are carrying out the orders of Great Yu's imperial lord to kill the Chinese people. Your Excellency, please stay away from this area." In his opinion, if he brought up the name of Great Yu's imperial lord, the other party would definitely give him face. Moreover, he wanted to exterminate the Chinese people's tribe. Although there were disputes between the various sects in this world, they all had a common enemy, and that was the people from the outer realms. The Chinese people's tribe was one of them. However, after hearing his words, the real dragon did not stop. Instead, it flew straight over. A figure stood on the dragon's head. The moment they saw the figure, Ji Ning, the clan leader who was lying there, and all the Chinese people were pleasantly surprised. "Mr. Li is here. I knew he wasn't a coward." Ji Ning clenched his fist and said loudly. The clan leader could not help but shed tears. He thought he had misjudged Li Chongqing and was sad for a long time. Now, Li Chongqing had finally appeared. The backbone of the Chinese people has never been broken. The clan leader muttered to himself. At this moment, the 9 great divine generals all frowned. It was not because of the cheers of the Chinese people, but because they felt that the 5-clawed dragon was very familiar. The leader of the 9 great divine generals looked at the 5-clawed dragon and asked hesitantly, "Are you the sect master of the Shinryu sect?" At their level, they naturally knew many secrets that others did not know. As far as they knew, there was only one five-clawed dragon in the Devil Sky Galaxy, and that was the sect master of the Shinryu sect. However, after hearing the Golden Armor Divine General's words, the real dragon suddenly became angry. It opened its ferocious mouth and roared angrily. He had transformed into a real dragon and was flying with Li Changsheng stepping on his head. What he was most afraid of was being recognized by others, because once he was recognized, his reputation would be ruined. However, the Golden Armor Divine General had pointed out his identity, which made him very angry. Chapter 1041. When the Golden Armor General revealed the origin of the five-clawed true dragon, the five-clawed true dragon was enraged. Without waiting for Li Changsheng's instructions, the five-clawed true dragon opened its mouth and bit down on half of the Golden Armor General's body. The other heavenly generals were scared out of their wits. No one expected the five-clawed true dragon to be so ferocious. However, the five-clawed true dragon did not swallow the Golden Armor General. After all, the Golden Armor General was a general under the Emperor of the Great Yu Dynasty. The Emperor was extremely powerful. Even the Shinryu sect leader did not want to offend him. The Golden Armor General was just expressing his anger. After swallowing half of the Golden Armor General, the five-clawed true dragon spat him out. Fortunately, the five-clawed true dragon did not swallow him. Otherwise, he would have lost his life. At this moment, Li Changsheng jumped down from the dragon's head. He saw the Golden Armor General lying on the ground and felt Li Changsheng's gaze on him. Since Li Changsheng could ride the five-clawed true dragon, he must be very powerful. However, he forced himself to remain calm and said, "You must be Li Changsheng, right?" "Yes, that's me." Li Changsheng nodded. "We are the heavenly generals of the Great Yu Dynasty. You coward, you said you would fight our emperor, but you did not dare to show up. Now, I advise you to come with me and apologize to our emperor. Otherwise, we have many ways to inform our emperor. When he arrives, you will definitely die." Li Changsheng could not help but chuckle when he heard the Golden Armor General's words. Beside him, the Shinryu sect leader could not look at him as if he was an idiot. He had experienced Li Changsheng's strength. It was absolutely terrifying. Even the Shinryu sect leader had been beaten to the point of being a mout. This Golden Armor General still dared to threaten Li Changsheng at this moment. Wasn't he courting death? Indeed, Li Changsheng smiled and raised his hand. Slap! He slapped the Golden Armor General. The Golden Armor General's golden helmet, along with half of his face, was smashed into smithereens. Logically speaking, at their level of cultivation, even if their bones were broken, they could easily regrow them. However, Li Changsheng's strength was unmatched. That slap had used the power of laws, making it impossible for him to recover. Being slapped in front of so many of his subordinates, the Golden Armor General felt humiliated. "Li, do you want to start a war with the Yu Dynasty? What is the Great Yu Dynasty? Besides, you're just a dog raised by the Emperor." Then, without waiting for him to speak, he slapped him across the left side of his face, turning it into a bloody mess. The Golden Armor General. God's Golden Armor Generals. In the next second, before they could react, Li Changsheng had already stretched out his hand. Under a strong suction force, the Golden Armor General was pulled close to him. He was thrown to the ground by Li Changsheng like a dead dog. Then, Li Changsheng kicked him in the legs. With two cracking sounds, the area below his knees exploded into a bloody mist. The Golden Armor General's bleeding legs were pinned to the ground by Li Changsheng. It was as if he was kneeling there. "How dare you behave atrociously in the Chinese people's tribe? I want you to kneel down and apologize to the Chinese people." The Golden Armor General stared at Li Changsheng with a pair of venomous eyes and said in a cold voice, "My royal lord will definitely avenge me." As he spoke, a terrifying aura was emitted from his body. He was actually going to self-destruct. The rest of the immortal generals were all moved. The Golden Armor General laughed out loud. He was now very close to the position of the Hua clan leader. As long as he self-destructed, with the strength of the true immortal realm, he would definitely drag the Hua clan leader down with him. His heart was truly vicious. However, in the next moment, Li Changsheng sneered, "Do you think it's that easy to die in front of me?" As soon as he finished speaking, the Golden Armor General was shocked to find that the aura in his body had disappeared. His bloodline, which had been reversed, had returned to normal. Moreover, he found that he could not use his cultivation at all. In other words, he had become an ordinary person and could not self-destruct at all. How is this possible? The Golden Armor General was shocked. Even the Emperor of the Great Yu Dynasty could not stop him from self-destructing. However, Li Changsheng had done it. Since I can't drag you down with me, I can only die to prove my sincerity. As the Golden Armor General spoke, a cone-shaped Dharma artifact appeared in his hand. He stabbed it into his heart. The cone-shaped Dharma artifact stabbed into his heart. Blood immediately flowed out of his mouth. This was also a ruthless person. He could even stab himself so hard. However, the Golden Armored General soon realized that his body was in great pain. His heart was indeed ruptured, but he was not dead. Only when he raised his head did he see Li Changsheng's mocking gaze. "I've said that your life and death is not up to you in front of me." As soon as he finished speaking, Li Changsheng walked toward the Golden Armor General step by step. "Since you plan to slaughter the Chinese people's tribe, I will not give you a quick death." As he spoke, he slowly raised his hand. "I've decided to let you have a taste of death. What are you trying to do?" The Golden Armor General said with a trembling voice. He had a bad feeling. That smile was too creepy. It made him shiver. At this moment, he felt that death might be the best release. Unfortunately, he could not die. "Don't worry. In the following process, I will make your mind extremely clear. Only then can you enjoy the wonderful taste." As he spoke, Li Changsheng walked in front of the Golden Armor General and grabbed one of his arms. The Golden Armor General wanted to resist, but he found that his body was stiff and could not move at all. Then he began to crush his fingers one by one. He crushed one joint at a time, no more, no less. When all 5 fingers were crushed, the Golden Armor General was already sweating from the pain. Because of fear, his body began to tremble. Next, Chun Xian crushed his entire arm bit by bit from his wrist. Ji Ning was next to him. Although he hated the Golden Armor General to the core, he could not help but turn his head to the side. The Patriarch laughed and said, "Evil people will be dealt with by evil people." "Serves you right." The Shinryu sect master hovering in the air saw this scene, and his eyelids twitched. He thought to himself, "Fortunately, I was ridden by Li Changsheng and did not have any other thoughts. Otherwise, if my dragon bones were crushed inch by inch, I shudder at the thought." Although the other immortal generals didn't dare to move forward due to Li Changsheng's power at the beginning, at the sight of their colleague's miserable look, one of them finally couldn't stand stepping forward as he slashed towards Li Changsheng with his saber light. "Stop him!" Li Changsheng ordered the Shinryu sect master above him without looking back. The Shinryu sect master was furious. He was a sect master and a top expert in the Devil Sky Star Zone, but he was ordered around by Li Changsheng. However, this anger was suppressed in the blink of an eye. He knew that he could not afford to offend Li Changsheng now. Chapter 1042. The sect master of the Shinryu sect, the supreme existence of the Devil Sky Star Zone, was now being ordered around by Li Changsheng. The Shinryu sect master was very angry and wanted to bite Li Changsheng's head off. However, he resisted this impulse in the end. He knew how terrible the consequences of provoking Li Changsheng were. At this moment, Li Changsheng did not even turn his head. He continued to torture the Golden Armor General. After breaking one of his arms, he started to attack his other arm. Seeing that the Divine General's long blade was about to hit Li Changsheng, the Shinryu sect master reluctantly transformed into his human form and hit the Divine General with his palm. Although the Divine General was powerful, he was no match for the Shinryu sect master. He was sent flying with blood spurting out of his mouth. At this moment, the other arm of the Golden Armor General had been crushed by Li Changsheng. Li Changsheng raised his hand and grabbed his head. The Golden Armor General finally screamed in fear, "No, no." It was obvious that Li Changsheng intended to squeeze his head until it exploded. This was definitely a terrifying process. However, Li Changsheng ignored his screams and slowly placed his hand on his head. Then, a shrill scream resounded through the sky. As Li Changsheng's hand tightened, his head bled from his 7 orifices. Then, his consciousness became blurry until he was crushed. At this moment, even the patriarch of the Chinese people could not help but turn his head to the side. It was too bloody, too cruel, and too cruel. On the other side, the divine generals were so angry that their eyes turned red. They rushed towards Li Changsheng like crazy. The Shinryu sect master was hesitating. If he did not deal with these people, Li Changsheng would definitely not let him go. However, if he did, he was afraid that he would offend the entire Great Yu dynasty. Li Changsheng did not make things difficult for him for too long. He only heard Li Changsheng say faintly, "All right, you step back and leave it to me." His tone sounded like he was ordering a subordinate, but the Shinryu sect leader couldn't get angry at all, because even if he had a temper, it was useless. He couldn't beat Li Changsheng. If he went against Li Changsheng, he would only be unlucky and be abused. He stood aside as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. Then, he saw an incomparably bloody scene. Li Zhongxing's figure turned into a blur as he rushed towards the other 8 divine generals. As soon as he attacked, he smashed the head of the divine general at the front. Red and white matter splattered everywhere. Then, he charged at the other divine generals. 8 headless corpses stood there and then slowly fell to the ground. The 9 divine generals were all dead. The remaining soldiers of the Great Yu dynasty were completely scared out of their wits. They turned around and fled into the distance. However, Li Changsheng clearly did not intend to let them go. His body rose into the sky, and then the blood shadow, doppelganger, flew out. Countless shadows flew out from Li Changsheng's body and flew in all directions, pouncing towards the soldiers of the Great Yu dynasty. Those people were running for their lives, but how could they be faster than the blood shadow doppelganger? The blood shadow doppelganger flashed past their bodies, and the flesh of one of them turned into ashes. Only the frame of his armor was left, and it scattered on the ground. In almost the blink of an eye, everyone from the Great Yu dynasty had turned into ashes. The Shinryu sect master's eyelids twitched when he saw this scene. Li Changsheng was simply too cruel. After Li Changsheng killed the people of the Great Yu dynasty, he descended from the sky and checked the injuries of the clan leader. He injected a strand of true qi into the clan leader's body and helped him recover. At this time, Jining walked over and said happily, "Mr. Li, I knew you weren't a coward." Li Changsheng patted his head and comforted him. Then he said, "I still have some things to take care of." The clan leader nodded. He naturally knew what Li Changsheng wanted to do. Then, Li Changsheng looked at the Shinryu sect master beside him and said, "Quickly return to your original form." The Shinryu sect master naturally knew why Li Changsheng wanted him to return to his original form. He could not help but bitterly say, "Mr. Li, can you not ride me again? If you want to settle the score with the emperor of the Great Yu dynasty, I won't object. But if you ride me, I'll lose all my face." "No." Li Changsheng shook his head. "If you don't want to be my mount, that's fine too. Then, I'll deal with you just like how I dealt with the golden armored general. You." The Shinryu sect master was so angry that his eyes were burning. However, when he saw Li Changsheng's cold gaze, his heart skipped a beat. He knew that Li Changsheng was definitely not joking. In Li Changsheng's eyes, he was really nothing. "Fine," he sighed. A bad life was better than a good death. Dignity was important, but life was more important. A strong person like him understood that there was only hope if he was alive. There was nothing left if he died. That's more like it. Li Changsheng smiled faintly. The Shinryu sect master transformed into a 5-clawed golden dragon. Li Changsheng leaped onto the dragon's head and waved at Jining and the clan leader. Then, the 5-clawed golden dragon soared into the sky and flew directly in the direction of the Great Yu dynasty. Li Changsheng stood on the dragon's horn with his hands clasped behind his back as he looked at the scene in the sea of clouds. The Shinryu sect master flew very high, so high that he reached the top of the clouds. He didn't want anyone to see him being ridden on top of his head. This allowed Li Changsheng to see the scene in the sea of clouds. At this moment, in the Great Yu Dynasty, the emperor of the Great Yu Dynasty sat on the dragon throne. Below him were many experts of the Great Yu Dynasty. I sent 9 divine generals to exterminate the Chinese people. They should have slaughtered all the Chinese people by now. Unfortunately, I don't know where that Li Changsheng is hiding. If I can kill the trial taker of the ancient road, my strength will definitely rise to another level. The emperor said in a dignified voice, The trial taker of the ancient road is just a coward. However, after he avoids this battle, it is very likely that he will set foot on the ancient road. At that time, it will not be easy to kill him. That's right. I suggest that the entire Starfield search for him and issue a warrant for his arrest. Whoever can provide the trail of the trial taker of the ancient road will be rewarded with 10,000 tons of spirit stones. 10,000 tons? Isn't that a little too much? A general next to him frowned and said, 10,000 tons of spirit stones was not a small amount for the Great Yu Dynasty. If we can kill the trial taker of the ancient road, what is 10,000 tons of spirit stones? The person next to him immediately retorted. The emperor of the Great Yu Dynasty nodded. That makes sense. You all go and do it immediately. I must kill the trial taker of the ancient road. Understood. Several generals cupped their fists and accepted the order. Just as they turned and were about to walk out of the hall, a loud bang suddenly rang out, and the entire hall shook 3 times. Then, a loud and clear voice came from the outside. Where is the emperor of the Great Yu Dynasty? Come out and face your death. The voice was clear and resounded in all directions, full of arrogance and insolence. Suddenly, the entire hall fell into silence. Everyone was dumbfounded. The Great Yu Dynasty had been established for many years, and no one had ever dared to provoke them like this. Chapter 1043. Li Changxing's shout shook the entire Great Yu Imperial City. Countless people looked in the direction of the voice. Who is that? How dare he come to Great Yu Imperial City and behave so atrociously? How dare he? Our Yu Dynasty has been established for more than 10,000 years, and no one has ever attacked our Imperial City. It seems to be a trial taker of the ancient road. Trial taker of the ancient road? Why did he choose to come to hell when there was a path to heaven? Countless people looked in the direction of the Imperial Palace. Because Li Changxing's voice was so loud that it spread out in all directions, the Imperial Emperor's face was filled with anger. He left the Great Hall with all his courtiers, and dozens of figures flew out of the Great Hall like birds that had been awakened in the early morning. When they flew out, they saw a 5-clawed golden dragon hovering quietly in the sky, and a figure stood on its head with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked like an immortal, and it was none other than Li Changsheng. At this moment, everyone in the Yu Dynasty saw the golden dragon in the sky and Li Changsheng on top of it. That's a 5-clawed golden dragon. A real dragon. No way. Is there still a real dragon in this world? Even our Yu Dynasty's Imperial Emperor only used a few mixed blood dragons with flood dragon bloodline to pull his carriage. But this man is riding a golden dragon. How majestic! A 5-clawed golden dragon is probably as strong as a heaven immortal expert. No wonder he dares to come to our Yu Dynasty and behave atrociously. Many people were talking about it. The Imperial Emperor recognized the sect master of the Shinryu sect at a glance and asked in a deep voice, Sect master of the Shinryu sect, what do you mean? You're the sect master of a super sect in Devil Sky Galaxy, and now you are willing to be the mount of a trial taker of the ancient road? Don't you feel ashamed? Upon hearing the Imperial Emperor's words, the sect master of Shinryu's sect had a look of grievance in his eyes. He did not want to be Li Changxing's mount, but there was nothing he could do. Li Changxing was so cruel, and if he did not agree to it, he would have been skinned alive and torn to shreds by now. Great Yu's Imperial Majesty, please don't misunderstand. I have no intention of helping the wicked, the Shinryu sect leader explained. However, as soon as he spoke, Li Changsheng slapped him on the head. Li Changsheng's physical body was terrifying. The slap caused the Shinryu sect leader to grimace in pain. At the same time, he was furious. "What are you doing?" Being beaten by Li Changsheng was not a big deal, but being beaten on the head in front of the Emperor of Great Yu and so many people of Great Yu was simply too humiliating. "How dare you say that you are helping the wicked? Do you want to die?" Li Changsheng said threateningly. When a Shinryu sect leader thought of Li Changsheng's bloody means, he shuddered and scolded himself for talking too much. If he angered this fiend, he would be finished. He hurriedly shook his head and said, "It was a slip of the tongue. I was wrong. Please don't be angry, Mr. Li." Seeing this, the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu and many of his ministers were dumbfounded. Was this still the awe-inspiring and famous sect master of Shinryu sect? They remembered that a few hundred years ago, someone had spoken rudely to the sect master of Shinryu sect. As a result, that person and the sect behind him were massacred by the sect master of Shinryu sect. This showed how cruel the sect master of Shinryu sect was. But they didn't expect that he would be subdued by Li Changsheng, as if he was really Li Changsheng's pet. How could the sect master of Shinryu sect be so humble? What a disgrace to the Devil's Sky galaxy. Yeah, and he's the sect master of some super sect? Bullshit. Countless people shook their heads in disdain. Although the true dragon sect master was currently in his dragon form, one could see that his expression was very ugly. He didn't want to do this, but what could he do? He had never seen Li Changsheng's cruelty, so how could he understand Li Changsheng's horror? The Shinryu sect leader also knew that it was useless to explain now, so he simply closed his eyes. Out of sight, out of mind. At this time, Li Changsheng stood on the dragon's head and looked down at the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu. "Are you the one who sent your divine generals to slaughter the Chinese people?" Hearing Li Changsheng's words, the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu nodded. "Yes. Who asked you to stand me up on the Jade Dragon Snow Mountain? I've already helped you send all your generals to the Western Paradise. I'm here to send you to meet them." Hearing Li Changsheng's words, the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu was furious. "Arrogant boy, who do you think you are?" As soon as his voice fell, Li Changsheng raised his palm, which turned into a giant palm print and slapped down on the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu from top to bottom, as if he was swatting a fly. The Imperial Emperor of Great Yu didn't expect Li Changsheng to suddenly attack, and for a moment he didn't react. When he reacted, he immediately snorted coldly. "You're courting death." He raised his palm and met Li Changsheng's palm print, trying to break Li Changsheng's palm print. Rumble. The moment the two palms collided, the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu's palm was instantly broken, and then his whole body was slapped into the ground by Li Changsheng. At the same time, the terrifying force caused countless surrounding palaces to collapse. Everyone who witnessed all this was dumbfounded. In the eyes of everyone in the Great Yu dynasty, the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu was a supreme existence, synonymous with invincibility. But now he was slapped into a crack in the ground. The five-clawed golden dragon, who had his eyes closed, also opened his eyes. When he saw the miserable state of the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu, instead of showing sympathy, there was a hint of joy in his eyes. Previously, when he was Li Changsheng's mount, he was ridiculed and felt ashamed. Now, the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu was slapped into a crack in the ground. Just like him, the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu was the top expert in Devil Sky Galaxy. When he saw that the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu was also humiliated by Li Changsheng, he suddenly felt much better. "I'm going to kill you." At this moment, a voice full of resentment and anger came out of the crack in the ground. The Imperial Emperor of Great Yu's body turned into a golden light and rose from the ground. At the same time, he pulled out a golden sword and slashed at Li Changsheng. He was completely enraged. When he slashed out with the sword, there was a sovereign aura spreading out. When the sword slashed out, the sovereign aura surged out violently. Behind the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu, a nine-clawed golden dragon appeared. It was obvious that this dragon was very different from the one that appeared behind the Shinryu sect master. This is the Nine-Dragon Sword, the inherited treasure of our Dayu dynasty. This damned trial-taker of the ancient road dared to slap our Imperial Emperor into a crack in the ground. Our Imperial Emperor will use the Nine-Dragon's sword to cut off his head. Our Imperial Emperor is invincible. Many people muttered to themselves. In the eyes of the people of the Great Yu dynasty, the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu was their spiritual pillar and the god of war in their hearts. When the sword slashed out, the sovereign aura surged out violently, as if it was going to cut the world in half. The Imperial Emperor of Great Yu was worthy of being the top expert in this world. However, he had forgotten that the sect master of the Shinryu sect was an expert of the same level as him. Yet, he was subdued by Li Changsheng and could only be humiliated as a mount. Even if he was really stronger than the sect master of the true martial sect, could he deal with Li Changsheng? Chapter 1044. The Imperial Emperor's attack was very powerful, but unfortunately, he was facing Li Changsheng. When the Imperial energy surged down, Li Changsheng just stood still and let it hit him. In fact, Li Changsheng wanted to test the strength of his fleshly body. In his opinion, such an attack from the Imperial Emperor could not threaten him at all. Sure enough, when the Imperial energy surged down on Li Changsheng, a complacent look appeared on the Imperial Emperor's face. But soon, the smile on his face froze, because Li Changsheng stood there like a reef in the sea. No matter how strong the waves were, he stood still. The imperial energy of the Imperial Emperor did not hurt Li Changsheng at all. Li Changsheng could not help but shake his head. Imperial Emperor of Great Yu, is this all you've got? How dare you challenge me to a duel? I can crush you with just a finger. Li Changsheng's arrogant words made the Imperial Emperor so angry that his eyes almost burst into flames. However, he was powerless to refute. He thought that his ultimate move could kill, but did not even break a corner of his opponent's clothes. How can he be so powerful? Do you have any more moves? If not, the Dayu dynasty can be wiped off the face of the earth. Li Changsheng's casual words made everyone in the Great Yu dynasty tremble when they heard it. That's right. The Great Yu dynasty might really be trampled to the ground. How sad would that be? Let's fight him to the death. Many of the ministers shouted and rushed toward Li Changsheng. These people were quite brave. They knew that they were no match for Li Changsheng. Even if they had to die, they would still fight Li Changsheng to the death. But sometimes it was meaningless to fight desperately. Facing the charging ministers of the Dayu dynasty, Li Changsheng stood still and did not move. The attacks from the ministers kept washing over his body. Even the imperial energy of the Imperial Emperor could not hurt Li Changsheng, so the attacks from these ministers were just tickling Li Changsheng. When these ministers were about to reach him, Li Changsheng slowly raised his palm, as if he was playing with a group of ants. He waved his palm a few times in the air, and then dozens of Dayu dynasty's ministers exploded in the air one after another, turning into blood mists. When the remaining ministers saw this, they calmed down. They knew that even if they tried their best, they could not hurt Li Changsheng at all. Sorrow filled their eyes. Is the Great Yu dynasty really at the end of its road? The officials' eyes were filled with the determination to die. They approached Li Changsheng step by step, ready to sacrifice themselves for justice. But at this moment, the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu suddenly said, "That's enough. Back off. You will only die if you go up." After that, the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu took a deep breath and said, "Li Changsheng, you forced me to do this." As soon as his voice faded, he shouted, "Where are the vermilion bird cavalry of Great Yu?" His voice shook the sky. "Here, here, here." Orderly voices rang out outside the imperial city of Great Yu. In the distance, a dense group of armored soldiers appeared. They were all wearing red armor, and a huge vermilion bird formed above their heads. Is this the legendary vermilion bird cavalry of the Dayu dynasty? Everyone in the vermilion bird cavalry is at the Earth Immortal Realm. There are 30,000 of them in total, and when they form a formation, they can kill heaven immortals. Many people were talking about it, and their blood was boiling. This was the real trump card of the Dayu dynasty. Were the Azure Dragon Cavalry. Here, here, here. In the distance, there was another group of soldiers wearing green armor, and a lifelike Azure Dragon appeared above their heads. Where are the Black Tortoise Cavalry? Here, here, here. In the north, there was the Black Tortoise Cavalry in black armor. A shadow of a tortoise and a serpent appeared in the sky. Where are the White Tiger Cavalry? Here, here, here. In the west, there was a cavalry in white armor, and a white tiger roared into the sky. Each of the four armies had 30,000 soldiers, and a total of 120,000 soldiers. This was the power of the Dayu dynasty, enough to run amok in the world. 120,000 Earth Immortal soldiers were so terrifying that even Li Changsheng could not help but show a serious expression. He did not expect the Dayu dynasty to have such a strong foundation. After 10,000 years and countless generations of accumulation, the Dayu dynasty has finally formed the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise Cavalry. Originally, I planned to use this army to dominate the Devil Sky Galaxy, and then kill my way to the ancient path of the stars to sweep through the myriad of realms. I wanted the name of the Dayu dynasty to be known throughout the universe, and I wanted the flag of the Dayu dynasty to be planted in every galaxy. Originally, I did not plan to use this power, but Li Changsheng, you forced me to do this. Today, I will use your blood to forge the name of the Dayu dynasty. I will use your head as a sacrifice to make the Great Yu dynasty invincible in the world. As soon as the Imperial Lord of Great Yu finished speaking, the soldiers of the four armies roared in unison. Kill, 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 kill. Killing intent soared into the sky. The Azure Dragon with its eyes closed, the Black Tortoise with its head shrunk, and the Vermilion Bird with its head drooped, raised their heads at the same time. As the White Tiger laughed and roared into the sky, the four terrifying energy pillars merged into one in the sky. The entire Fiend Sky galaxy was startled. Countless figures appeared in the distance, and countless divine senses were focused on this place. Apparently, even the natives of the Fiend Sky galaxy did not expect that the Dayu dynasty had hidden such a powerful trump card. Li Changsheng, are you going to die by yourself? Or do you want me to do it? The Imperial Lord of Great Yu looked coldly at Li Changsheng, and his voice was full of confidence. Yes, no matter who had such an army and such strength, how could he not be confident? Of course you will die, Li Changsheng said lightly. The army of 120,000 Earth Immortals was indeed terrifying, but it had also aroused his fighting spirit. A warrior should sweep away all his enemies and trample them under his feet. Only then could he reach the top. Li Changsheng took a deep breath and held the ardent dragon spear in his hand. At the same time, the Tian-Du sword flew out and scattered sword beams. Within 30 feet of him, a deadly sword field was formed. The soul-converging flag, the sky-piercer halberd, and the black evil mountain floated behind him. Li Changsheng knew that this might be the biggest challenge he faced in his life. One had to know that the 120,000 Earth Immortals were all there. Their combined strength was simply terrifying. No wonder the Imperial Lord of Great Yu said that he would conquer all the worlds in the universe. Imperial Lord of Great Yu, you have finally become a qualified opponent. In the next second, Li Changsheng suddenly raised his head and raised the ardent dragon spear in his hand. A golden beam of light pierced the sky. Then, a clone walked out of Li Changsheng's body and rushed toward the Vermilion Bird battle formation with the ardent dragon spear in his hand. Whoosh! The moment the ardent dragon spear flew out, it was burning with a golden flame. The flame formed a heat wave and crashed toward the Vermilion Bird battle formation. At the same time, another clone walked out. The Tian-Du sword in his hand turned into a sword beam that was 10,000 feet long and slashed at the Azure Dragon battle formation. Another clone appeared and waved the soul-converging flag to meet the White Tiger battle formation. Finally, Li Changsheng's true body rushed toward the Black Tortoise battle formation with the Sky Piercer halberd in his hand. At this moment, Li Chongqing chose to attack 4 battle formations at the same time. Chapter 1045. No one thought that Li Chongqing would choose to attack all 4 battle formations at the same time. After all, there were 120,000 Earth Immortals. That was a force that could wipe out all the realms in the universe. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu was stunned for a moment. Then he burst out laughing. Trial taker of the ancient road, if I were you, I would immediately turn around and run away, because there might be a chance of survival. I didn't expect you to be so stupid to fight 120,000 Earth Immortals. You really don't know what's good for you. Li Chongqing didn't care about the ridicule of the Imperial Lord of Great Yu. Holding the sky halberd, he rushed toward the black tortoise battle formation. The terrifying sky halberd smashed down with a powerful force. Whoosh! Under the halberd, the whole earth shook. However, when the terrifying sky halberd hit the black tortoise battle formation, it was easily blocked by a huge shield that appeared. Li Chongqing's seemingly all-out attack couldn't shake the battle formation at all. Ha! Ha! Li Chongqing, now you know how powerful this battle formation is, don't you? Your futile attempt to break it is tantamount to a mayfly trying to shake a tree. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu was extremely proud. In his eyes, Li Chongqing was like a joke. Li Chongqing clenched the sky halberd tightly. His eyes were filled with seriousness. These 4 battle formations were too powerful. Any one of them was not something he could shake with his current strength. What should I do? Just as Li Chongqing was frowning, the black tortoise battle formation took the initiative to attack. The black tortoise above his head had already disappeared, and what appeared next was a simple and unadorned long saber. The saber was like a mountain, locking onto Li Chongqing's position, and then, with a whoosh, it slashed down. Li Chongqing hurriedly raised the sky halberd to meet it. Clang! The long saber and Li Chongqing's sky halberd collided, and a series of sparks burst out. Then, Li Chongqing's body quickly retreated, and a stream of blood flew out from his palm. Li Chongqing's supreme, fiend god body couldn't withstand such an attack. However, when the Imperial Lord of Great Yu saw this, his face was filled with shock. That was an attack unleashed with a combined might of 30,000 earthen immortals. And yet, Li Chongqing had only suffered a wound on his palm. Just how formidable was his fleshly body? Li Chongqing was actually so powerful. The Imperial Lord stared fixedly at Li Chongqing. If it weren't for the 4 battle formations and such a strong, fleshly body, perhaps even his true dragon body would not be able to stop Li Chongqing. Unfortunately, no matter how peerless you are, you still can't escape death in the end. The Shinryu sect leader shook his head. Without a doubt, Li Chongqing's battle prowess was peerless. However, who would have thought that the Great Yu dynasty's foundation was actually so deep? Even if a golden immortal were to appear, he would most likely die, let alone him. 120,000 Earth Immortals. Li Chongqing couldn't figure out how the Great Yu dynasty managed to nurture so many Earth Immortals. At this moment, after blocking the attack of the Xuanwu army, Li Chongqing had no intention of running away. Instead, he chose to take the initiative to attack again. His body rose into the sky and transformed into the celestial fiend form. It merged with the celestial fiend form behind him and became 1,000 feet tall. The heavenly halberd also kept growing in size and was held in his hand. He raised the heavenly halberd high up and kept hacking at the Xuanwu army. In the blink of an eye, he had hacked out 81 times. The power of the 81 times gathered together and fiercely crashed into the Xuanwu army. Boom! The earth trembled. The huge shield formed by the 30,000 Earth Immortals of the Xuanwu army shattered under this attack. The void behind them instantly turned into chaos. This attack could be considered the strongest attack of Li Chongqing's indestructible fiend body. Although it broke the shield of the Xuanwu army, that was all it could do. None of the 30,000 Earth Immortals of the Xuanwu army were injured. Li Chongqing couldn't help but feel powerless. There was no way he could win. Next to him, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu looked at Li Chongqing as if he were a clown. In his opinion, Li Changsheng was overestimating himself. This was 30,000 Earth Immortals. It was ridiculous that he thought he could defeat them all by himself. On the other side, Li Changsheng's other 3 clones were also unable to do anything. They couldn't even break through the defense of several large armies. Li Changsheng, now you know what despair is, don't you? Hand over all your magical treasures and cultivation techniques. Then, break your meridians, and I can spare your life. The Imperial Lord of Great, you said loudly. He wasn't that merciful. He just wanted Li Changsheng's magical treasures and cultivation techniques. He was afraid that Li Changsheng would explode them before he died. If he killed Li Changsheng, he would get Li Changsheng's fortune, but that was it. This was also the reason why he hadn't let the 4 armies attack together. Otherwise, Li Changsheng wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow from the 4 armies. You want my cultivation techniques and magical treasures? Dream on. Imperial Lord of Great You, do you really think you can defeat me? Li Changsheng said coldly. Ha! Ha! The Imperial Lord of Great You couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. Li Changsheng, are you still delusional at this moment? 120,000 Earth Immortals. You can't even withstand a single blow from them. What do you have to be tough with me? After that, he immediately ordered the Xuanwu army. Xuanwu army, teach him a lesson. Yes. The tens of thousands of soldiers of Xuanwu army shouted in unison. A huge sky-splitting axe condensed in the sky. The moment the axe appeared, the void trembled as if it couldn't withstand such a powerful force. Almost instantly, a terrifying aura locked onto Li Changsheng's body. Countless experts were attracted to the surroundings. The Great Yu dynasty had completely exposed its foundation. Many of the forces that were competing with the Great Yu dynasty couldn't help but sigh. With the power that the Great Yu dynasty had shown today, the Devil Sky Galaxy would be ruled by the Great Yu dynasty in the future. The other forces would have no choice but to submit. As for Li Changsheng, he was already a dead man in everyone's eyes. There was no way he could survive against 120,000 Earth Immortals alone. The huge sky-splitting axe slowly pressed down on Li Changsheng's position. It was very slow, but Li Changsheng felt that the void around him had been confined. He couldn't move. Seeing that the axe was about to fall, Li Changsheng suddenly raised his head. His black hair fluttered in the wind. The square sky-splitting halberd pierced out, breaking through the confinement of the void and meeting the earth-shattering attack head-on. Boom! The sky-splitting axe smashed down completely. Turbulent, chaotic energy filled the air. The entire world was about to be split in half. The earth, water, fire, and wind around Li Changsheng were turbulent. They formed tornadoes that were about to tear Li Changsheng's body apart. Li Changsheng's square sky-splitting halberd and the huge sky-splitting axe collided. Boom! A rumbling sound rang out in the void, and the ground beneath his feet sank. Under the shocking energy fluctuation, Li Changsheng's body flew backward. When he landed on the ground, one could see that his arm was badly mutilated and blood was flowing out of the corner of his mouth. Obviously, he was seriously injured by the axe, but at least he managed to block the sky-splitting axe. Li Changsheng, that was just a casual attack from the Xuanwu army. Next, I will merge the 4 armies into one. Do you think you can still block it? The Imperial Lord of Great You said coldly. Is that so? Of course, I can't block the full force attack of 120,000 Earth Immortals from the 4 armies. But as I said, do you think you can defeat me? Li Changsheng's lips curved into a cold smile. The Imperial Lord of Great You suddenly had a bad premonition. Chapter 1046. A terrifying aura suddenly filled the air, and Li Changsheng sneered. The Imperial Lord looked around blankly because he realized that the aura didn't come from Li Changsheng. It seemed to be coming from the sky. In an instant, countless people looked at the sky and saw that the clear sky had suddenly become covered with dark clouds. There seemed to be bolts of lightning flashing in the dark clouds. This is a heavenly tribulation. The Imperial Lord of Great You exclaimed. This seems to be an Earth immortal tribulation. How is this possible? Li Changsheng hasn't broken through to the earth immortal realm yet? As soon as this thought came to his mind, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu felt extremely horrified. A person who hadn't broken through to the earth immortal realm was so powerful. He was at the peak of the heaven immortal realm. Not only the Imperial Lord of Great Yu, but also the master of the Shinryu sect and countless spectators. This was simply unbelievable. As an earth celestial, he could defeat a heaven celestial. Even the legendary great ancient emperor couldn't do this when he was young. This young man was so terrifying. Rumble. Thunder boomed, causing the earth to tremble. The thunder tribulation hadn't fully condensed, but its terrifying power had already spread out. It made people tremble. Even a super expert like the Imperial Lord of Great Yu felt fear in his heart at this moment. It was too terrifying. Dark clouds soon covered the entire sky, and the whole world seemed to be plunged into darkness. The pressure in the sky was still increasing. Under this pressure, Li Changxing's face was full of smiles. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu suddenly understood what Li Changxing was going to do. The thunder tribulation would cover an area of 100 miles, and everyone within this area would be regarded as a tribulation taker. The intensity of the thunder tribulation would be adjusted according to the strength of the tribulation taker. Many people didn't dare to protect their beloved disciples when they saw them die under the thunder tribulation. This was because once they did, the thunder tribulation would regard it as a provocation and send down a stronger thunder tribulation. Now, there were 120,000 Earth Immortals around. With so many Earth Immortals judged as a provocation, the thunder tribulation would probably destroy the entire Devil Sky galaxy. This Li Changsheng is crazy. He wants to drag 120,000 Earth Immortals down with him. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu was horrified. Of course, he didn't think that Li Changsheng could survive such a lightning tribulation. However, he would not allow the countless generations of the Deyu dynasty to be destroyed by the lightning tribulation. Retreat. Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise legions, heed my command. Retreat immediately. Great Yu's emperor shouted hysterically. Because the pressure of the thunder tribulation had reached its strongest level, even an expert like the Imperial Lord of Great Yu felt breathless under the pressure. He was certain that once the lightning struck, even with his strength, he would be struck into dust. The lightning triggered by 120,000 Earth Immortals was terrifying. Upon hearing the order from the Imperial Overlord, the Earth Immortals of the four legions quickly retreated, distancing themselves from Li Changxing. The others also fled into the distance because at this moment, whoever was closest to Li Changsheng would have to bear the lightning with him. You want to run? Not so easy. Li Changsheng unleashed his speed and rushed toward the Black Tortoise Legion. Weren't you very arrogant just now? Come, let's continue to fight. The Black Tortoise Legion cursed inwardly. Li Changsheng was too despicable and shameless. They didn't want to die with Li Changsheng. However, although the combined strength of so many Earth Immortals was powerful, their speed was much slower. Li Changxing easily caught up with them. Seeing this, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu almost cried. If the lightning tribulation was attracted by Li Changsheng, then no one in the Black Tortoise Legion would survive. Li Changsheng, I was wrong. Please don't follow my legion. I can promise you that I will never trouble the Chinese people again. In the Imperial Lord of Great Yu's opinion, once the lightning tribulation came, Li Changsheng would definitely die. Originally, he planned to wipe out the Chinese people's tribes after Li Changsheng's death. But now, he only hoped that the foundation of the Deyu dynasty would not be destroyed by his own hands. Imperial Lord of Great Yu, didn't you say you had me in the bag just now? Why are you begging me now? If you want to beg me, kneel down and kowtow to me a few times, then I will let your legion go. You, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu, was so angry that his veins bulged. He was the emperor of a divine dynasty. Asking him to kneel was no different from killing him. Seeing that the Imperial Lord of Great Yu refused to kneel, Li Changsheng sneered. At this moment, with a loud crack, a purple lightning bolt shot out of a bucket and struck Li Changsheng. But it didn't cause any harm to Li Changsheng. It was directly swallowed and refined by Li Changsheng. This is only the beginning of the heavenly tribulation. Hide your aura. The imperial lord of Great Yu ordered. The 4 legions spread out and formed a formation to conceal their aura. As long as the heavenly tribulation couldn't sense their aura, it wouldn't attack them. The imperial lord of Great Yu also realized that the 4 legions could never escape from Li Changsheng's speed. When the time came, Li Changsheng would catch up with them one by one, even if he wanted to perish together with them. Perhaps the 4 legions would all be killed or wounded. Sure enough, after the 4 legions formed the formation, the heavenly tribulation in the sky weakened a lot. Li Changsheng, as long as you stay away from my legion now, I can let bygones be bygones. You can also safely go through the heavenly tribulation and set foot on the ancient road. I promise I won't chase you anymore. Seeing that the formation to avoid the heavenly tribulation worked, the imperial lord of Great Yu breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Li Changsheng with a pleading look. In his opinion, with such a powerful heavenly tribulation, Li Changsheng would most likely die, but at least there was a slim chance of survival. If he really brought 120,000 Earth immortals to transcend the tribulation, Li Changsheng would definitely die. Any normal person would know what to choose. However, Li Changsheng's face was full of ridicule. Seeing Li Changsheng's expression, the imperial lord of Great Yu's heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, Li Changsheng charged directly toward the Xuanwu army. This formation to conceal the heavenly tribulation is not bad. It can also help me conceal the heavenly tribulation. When they heard Li Changsheng's words, the Xuanwu army members cursed. They were not the main characters of the tribulation, so they could hide from the heavenly tribulation by using the formation to conceal the heavenly tribulation. However, Li Changsheng was different. Li Changsheng was like a bright lamp. Once he hid in the array formation would not be able to conceal his aura. Li Changsheng, let's talk things over. The imperial lord of Great Yu hurriedly said. At that moment, several more lightning bolts fell from the sky. Li Changsheng increased his speed to the maximum and charged directly toward the Xuanwu army. Before the lightning could strike Li Changsheng, he landed in the Xuanwu army's camp. When the heavenly tribulation struck, the Xuanwu army members had no choice but to circulate their energy to resist the force of the lightning. This resistance was not important, but the heavenly tribulation instantly judged it as a provocation. In an instant, the heavenly tribulation, which had already weakened, became extremely violent. A blue 9-clawed divine dragon, formed by lightning bolts, charged from the sky toward the Xuanwu army. In an instant, the entire Xuanwu army was pulled into the camp of the tribulation by Li Changsheng. Chapter 10:47. As the 9-clawed golden dragon descended, Li Changsheng's hair stood on end as he sensed great danger. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the huge blue 9-clawed golden dragon came crashing down. It was 1,000 feet long and covered the entire Xuanwu army. Crack! Li Changsheng was the first to be struck by the lightning. Black smoke rose from his body as if he had come from Africa. However, the countless Earth immortals below him were torn apart by the lightning. A few of them were turned into ashes on the spot. Thunder! Li Changsheng shouted as he ran into the depths of the Xuanwu army. His clothes were in rags, and he looked like a monkey jumping up and down or a beggar begging on the street. But his voice made the imperial emperor's eyelids twitch violently, and the 30,000 Earth immortals of Xuanwu army cursed. The lightning just now was just the beginning. Who knew how terrifying the next one would be? Sure enough, with a loud rumbling sound, another scarlet red lightning struck down. Its radiance illuminated the entire heaven and earth, as if it was a heavenly pillar that connected the heaven and earth. The terrifying power was suffocating. When Li Changsheng saw the lightning, he laughed out loud. The lightning bolt just now was purely aimed at him and affected the Earth immortals around him. Clearly, the tribulation cloud in the sky had sensed the power of the 30,000 Earth immortals and treated them as tribulation challengers. At this moment, a sense of danger rose in the hearts of every soldier of the Xuanwu army. What should we do? Hurry up and defend. They knew that the lightning had already locked onto them. They could only follow Li Changsheng to transcend the tribulation. The terrifying lightning turned into a crimson sea. Within the sea of crimson lightning, several lightning bolts came crashing down one after another. In an instant, the entire army was enveloped by the terrifying sea of lightning. Like a furious dragon roaring, everything on the ground was turned into ashes. What terrifying lightning! Li Changsheng let out a shrill scream. However, when his voice fell into the ears of the 30,000 soldiers of the Xuanwu army and the Imperial Emperor of Great Yu, it sounded like he was taking pleasure in Li Changsheng's misfortune. Rumble. Lightning wreaked havoc, extremely violent. It was as if a waterfall was falling from the sky. Lightning continued to fall, and the surrounding buildings were constantly collapsing under the lightning. In the blink of an eye, the entire Great Yu Imperial City was reduced to ruins. I must pass the 8th tribulation. Li Changsheng secretly swore that once the lightning tribulation descended, it would not stop until the tribulation was over. Under the lightning, the place had become a dead end. Great Yu's Imperial Emperor, the other 3 legions, and many spectators quickly fled. Li Changsheng, if you insist on dragging the Xuanwu army down with you, today will be the day you die. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu said bitterly. Being enveloped by the lightning, he knew that the Xuanwu army had been targeted by the heavenly tribulation. It would be difficult for them to avoid it. With so many people transcending the tribulation at the same time and triggering the lightning, even the Xuanwu army would probably be destroyed. The Emperor of Great Yu was heartbroken that one of the 4 legions, which had accumulated the power of countless generations of the Yu dynasty, had been wiped out the first time it appeared in the world. But there was nothing he could do at the moment. If I had known, I wouldn't have provoked this trial taker of the ancient road. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu thought to himself, I must slaughter the tribes of the Chinese people and refine their souls into magical artifacts so that they will be tortured for eternity. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu said coldly. Many people around could not help but shiver when they heard the Imperial Lord of Great Yu's words. With the Imperial Lord of Great Yu's character, he would definitely do what he said. Immediately, many people could not help but shake their heads. The Chinese people are innocent. Just because of Li Changsheng, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu will hold a grudge against them. What a pity! What a pity! The Chinese people have concealed their identities for so many years, but in the end, because of Li Changsheng's arrival, they were completely exposed to the eyes of the many forces in Devil Sky Galaxy. With Li Changsheng's death, the Chinese people's tribes are also unlucky. This Li Changsheng is really a jinx. But before he died, he killed 30,000 Earth Immortals of the Dayu dynasty. His death was worth it. Many people were discussing. Although they were hostile to the trial taker of the ancient road, Li Changsheng, they were also very afraid of the terrifying foundation and power of the Dayu dynasty. If they could see the Dayu dynasty suffer, they would be very happy. The entire Xuanwu army began to form a formation to resist the lightning. In the sky, a huge Xuanwu roared and flew toward the lightning. In just an instant, one lightning bolt after another struck down, and the Xuanwu exploded under the lightning. The earth kept shaking, and the 30,000 Earth Immortals coughed up blood at the same time. They were the ones who provoked the lightning and thoroughly angered the heavenly tribulation. No one knew when the end of this heavenly tribulation would come. It was extremely terrifying, and the world was in chaos. The people of the Imperial Lord of Great Yu had already retreated hundreds of miles away. Looking from afar, there were surging lightning bolts everywhere. The entire Yu dynasty was originally built on a high ground, but at this moment, a deep abyss had appeared. Under the terrifying lightning, that Li Changsheng should be dead. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu gnashed his teeth and said, the 30,000 soldiers were buried with Li Changsheng, and he wished he could tear Li Changsheng into pieces. Imperial Lord of Great Yu, why don't we bathe in the heavenly tribulation together? Suddenly, a hateful voice came from the lightning. Li Changsheng rushed out with disheveled hair. Behind him, endless lightning bolts chased after him, and his speed was even faster than the lightning bolts. As for the 30,000 soldiers of the Xuanwu army, because they had taken the initiative to fight against the lightning, even if Li Changsheng was struck to death, they would have to completely survive the heavenly tribulation. It was useless to hide at the end of the world. Seeing Li Changsheng rush out, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu's eyelids twitched. This heavenly tribulation was so terrifying that he could feel his heart palpitating from 100 miles away. If Li Changsheng approached him and dragged him into the lightning, he would also die. Li Changsheng, you're despicable. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu pushed his speed to the limit and fled into the distance. He fled several hundred miles in one breath, and when he turned around and saw that Li Changsheng did not chase after him, he breathed a sigh of relief. But in an instant, his eyes spat fire again. Although Li Changsheng did not chase after him, he flew toward the Vermilion Bird Army next to him. He wanted to drag the Vermilion Bird Army down with him. The heavenly tribulation triggered by the Xuanwu army was already like an earthquake. If the Vermilion Bird Army was dragged in as well, the power of the lightning would be unimaginable. It was not only the Imperial Lord of Great Yu, but also the other experts who were watching the battle. Li Changsheng, are you crazy to lure the Vermilion Bird Army into the heavenly tribulation? The power of a single lightning bolt is enough to destroy you in both body and soul. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu said through gritted teeth. But in the blink of an eye, a bitter smile appeared on his face. In any case, the heavenly tribulation triggered by the Xuanwu army was terrifying enough. Li Changsheng is definitely going to die. That's right. If he can drag the Vermilion Bird Army down with him before he dies, it will be worth it. Vermilion Bird Army, hurry up and scatter. This time, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu had learned his lesson. Last time, when the entire Xuanwu army formed a formation, Li Changsheng broke in and everyone had to follow Li Changsheng to transcend the tribulation. Now that the Vermilion Bird Army was scattered, Li Changsheng could only drag a portion of them into the heavenly tribulation. Obviously, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu's method was very useful. After the Vermilion Bird Army dispersed, Li Changsheng only managed to drag about 2,000 people into the heavenly tribulation. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu finally calmed down after finding a way to restrain Li Changsheng. But then his eyes widened again because Li Changsheng sped up again and rushed in a direction. This time, it was not the Azure Dragon Army or the White Tiger Army, but the direction of the Diyu dynasty's Imperial Mausoleum. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu's face turned extremely unsightly. Li Changsheng, what are you going to do? At this time, Li Changsheng did not forget to look back and grin at the Imperial Lord of Great Yu. I'm going to blow up the corpses. Chapter 1048. What did you say? Great Yu's Imperial Emperor raised his eyebrows. Li Changsheng was too despicable. If he led the Thunder Tribulation to the Imperial Mausoleum, then the ancestors of the Diyu dynasty would be struck by lightning and would not be able to rest in peace. However, he could not stop it, because stopping it meant that he would have to transcend the tribulation with Li Changsheng. What should we do? If the Imperial Mausoleum of the Diyu dynasty is blown up by Li Changsheng, then the Diyu dynasty will really become the laughingstock of the world. Li Changsheng, if you dare to blow up the Imperial Mausoleum, I will tear you into pieces. Great Yu's Imperial Emperor said sternly. However, Li Changsheng didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. Li Changsheng, if you don't stop, I will completely wipe out the Chinese people's tribes in the future. As soon as his voice fell, Li Changsheng's speed increased. Seeing that Li Changsheng was getting closer and closer to the Imperial Mausoleum, Great Yu's Imperial Emperor was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Li Changsheng, let's talk things over. How can you not disturb the spirits of my Diyu dynasty's ancestors? Great Yu's Imperial Emperor's voice had softened. However, Li Changsheng didn't pay any attention to him. Li Changsheng, I beg you, can you stop? Great Yu's imperial emperor was really scared. If the ancestral mausoleum was blown up, then he would be a sinner. He boasted that he was an eternal emperor and wanted to establish an unparalleled achievement. However, if he could not even protect his ancestors' mausoleum, he would probably be nailed to the pillar of shame and be infamous for 10,000 years. Finally, Li Changsheng descended on the ancestral mausoleum of the Dayu dynasty. Endless thunder rolled down and completely covered the ancestral mausoleum. Bang! A bolt of lightning as thick as a bucket fell and directly smashed a tombstone into pieces. Boom! A fireball fell from the sky and blasted a deep pit where the mausoleum used to be. Boom! With a loud bang, a monster in a yellow robe flew out of the mausoleum. Many people were shocked to see this. The monster was wearing a yellow robe. Clearly, it was an ancestor of the Dayu dynasty. However, the ancestor of the Dayu dynasty had clearly been dead for so long. Why would he come out of his grave? It was said that after some powerful existences died, their bodies would not be destroyed. Under the nourishment of the heaven and earth Yuan Qi, they could live a second life. This was one of those existences who had lived a second life. It was a pity that those who could live a second life were already in violation of the heavenly Tao and could not see the light of day. Under such powerful lightning, almost as soon as he flew out, he was struck by a bolt of lightning. Boom! It was enveloped in lightning, and after a series of distortions, it was completely reduced to ashes. Father! Suddenly, the emperor let out a shrill cry. Who would have thought that his father's corpse would actually live a second life? However, this was only the beginning. As the thunderbolts continued to fall, miserable cries could be heard from the imperial mausoleum. One figure after another was struck into ashes by the thunderbolts. In a short period of time, more than a dozen monsters appeared. Many people in the surroundings were secretly shocked. They did not expect that so many existences of the Dayu dynasty would live a second life. Once these existences cultivated to the extreme, they would be able to leave the imperial mausoleum and travel the world freely. It was very likely that they would bring disaster to the entire Devil Sky galaxy. It was just that they were unlucky to have met Li Changsheng. Under the heavenly lightning, they were all wiped out. This Li Changsheng is really the nemesis of the Great Yu dynasty. First, the vermilion bird army that had just appeared was collectively pulled into the heavenly tribulation. Now, many of the old monsters in the imperial mausoleum have lost their hope of living a second life. Li Changsheng, I'm going to tear you to pieces, Great Yu's emperor said through gritted teeth. However, in the next second, he saw Li Changsheng rushing towards him with a smile on his face. His expression changed drastically. Only then did he remember that Li Changsheng was a jinx and could not be tainted. He hurriedly fled into the distance. Many people who were watching the battle in the dark could not help but laugh out loud. Li Changsheng chased after Great Yu's emperor for a while. When he saw that Great Yu's emperor was running very fast, he did not chase after him. Although Great Yu's emperor dodged, Li Changsheng immediately turned around and chased after the three armies of White Tiger, Azure Dragon, and Vermilion Bird. As long as the people of these three armies ran a little slower, they would be pulled into the heavenly tribulation. For a moment, it was like a wolf rushing into a flock of sheep. The 120,000 Earth Immortals of the four armies were chased around in circles, and thunderbolts kept striking down. The power of the thunderbolts was getting stronger and stronger. Soon, Great Yu's emperor realized that something was wrong. Under such a powerful heavenly tribulation, Li Changsheng was still alive and kicking. He had not been struck to death. Finally, after a long time, the people of the four armies fled in all directions. They hid far away and completely dispersed. Li Changsheng could no longer pull them into the battlefield. Only then did he sit cross-legged in the void and let the heavenly tribulation envelop him. The thunderbolts in the sky became more and more violent, as if they were going to pierce through the heaven and earth. All the living beings in the entire Devil Heaven galaxy felt this terrible aura. The mountains and rivers within tens of thousands of miles were instantly turned into ashes. Only then did the people watching the battle realize that the previous heavenly tribulation was just an appetizer. Now, it was the heavenly tribulation that was triggered by 30,000 Earth immortals and Li Changsheng. Bolts of lightning struck down one after another. The people watching the battle fled as fast as they could, but their reactions were still too slow. Countless people were struck by the thunderbolts and fell from the sky. Many sect masters and elders of super sects lost their lives instantly under the heavenly tribulation. Great Yu's emperor was hiding far away. When he saw this scene, his eyelids twitched violently. He was sure that even with his cultivation base, he could not withstand the power of a single thunderbolt. What made his heart ache even more was that his Xuanwu army had begun to die in large numbers. In the blink of an eye, less than 5,000 of the 30,000 Earth immortals were left. Li Changsheng sat cross-legged in the void. He no longer chased after Great Yu's emperor, nor did he pull anyone into the heavenly tribulation. Instead, he began to transcend the tribulation with all his strength. Bolts of lightning struck his body. His clothes had long been burned to ashes. His fleshly body was bathed in the thunderbolts, and his entire being was swallowed up by the lightning. Such a powerful heavenly tribulation. Even the formation my Xuanwu army set up together could not withstand more than a few bolts. This Li Changsheng has been struck at least 100 times. Is he still not dead? Great Yu's emperor stared fixedly at Li Changsheng's position. The thunderbolts in the sky were getting more and more violent. This proved that Li Changsheng was still transcending the tribulation. Just how powerful is this person? Not only Great Yu's emperor, but the sect masters of the other sects also had complicated thoughts. The sea of lightning was boundless. It covered a distance of 10,000 miles. All living things within 10,000 miles were turned into ashes by the heavenly tribulation. This was the territory of the Great Yu dynasty. On this day, more than half of the Great Yu dynasty had completely disappeared from the world. The remaining three armies, Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, and White Tiger, watched this scene with lingering fear. Fortunately, they obeyed Great Yu's emperor's command and dispersed in time. They were not pulled into the heavenly tribulation by Li Changsheng. Otherwise, the 120,000 Earth immortals would have turned into 120,000 skeletons. The heavenly tribulation lasted for a few days. In the end, any random bolt of lightning could flatten a mountain range. The spectators retreated again and again. Looking into the distance, they could no longer see Li Changsheng's figure. But the heavenly tribulation showed signs of becoming more and more violent. The 30,000 Xuanwu army had all died in the heavenly tribulation. Why is Li Changsheng still not dead? Great Yu's emperor had a bad feeling. He can't really transcend such a heavenly tribulation, can he? Chapter 1049. 30,000 Earth immortals were turned into ashes, but the thunder tribulation did not stop. Instead, it became even more violent. The imperial lord of Great Yu frowned, his eyes filled with disbelief. Logically speaking, such a terrifying thunder tribulation would appear because Li Changsheng had pulled 30,000 Earth immortals into it. Once 30,000 Earth immortals died, even if Li Changsheng was not killed by the thunder tribulation, the power of the heavenly tribulation should have weakened. Once the person transcending the tribulation died, the heavenly tribulation would disappear. But now, the heavenly tribulation showed no signs of weakening. Could it be that Li Changsheng alone had triggered such a powerful thunder tribulation? It was too terrifying. Not only him, but all the experts watching the battle were also filled with disbelief. This Li Changsheng can be said to be the strongest person in history. If he can survive such a thunder tribulation, he will definitely become a great emperor in the future. I'm afraid that even the great emperors are not as strong as him. But can he survive such a thunder tribulation? Many people were shaking their heads. This thunder tribulation is the strongest in the world. It's not easy to survive it. It's already amazing that he can hold on for so long. But in my opinion, he can't escape death in the end. Many people were discussing. The thunder tribulation lasted for half a month, and endless thunderbolts kept falling. The spirit energy in the entire Devil Sky galaxy was in a frenzy. Countless voids collapsed, and the astral winds from the outer domain poured in, causing a disaster. Not only in the Du dynasty, but also in other places, countless creatures died in the disaster. It was a huge disaster for the people of the entire Devil Sky galaxy. On this day, the thunder tribulation finally began to weaken, and in the end, it slowly dispersed. Countless experts were still staring at the center of the thunder tribulation. They wanted to see if Li Changsheng, who brought disaster to the entire Devil Sky galaxy, had really died in the thunder tribulation. When the thunder tribulation completely disappeared, there was no trace of Li Changsheng in the center of the thunder tribulation. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu breathed a sigh of relief. He's finally dead. Not only the Imperial Lord of Great Yu, but everyone felt that the dark cloud in their hearts had dispersed. If Li Changsheng was not dead, they could not imagine how terrifying it would be. Look, what's that? Someone pointed at the center of the thunder tribulation and exclaimed. Then, he turned into a streak of light and rushed over. It's a magical weapon. It's a magical treasure left behind by Li Changsheng. In an instant, countless people went crazy. Previously, everyone had seen how powerful Li Changsheng's magic treasure was. Unexpectedly, during the lightning tribulation, Li Changsheng died while leaving behind his magic treasure. The Tiandu sword is mine. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu also reacted in an instant and rushed toward the thunder tribulation. Ardent Dragon Spear. No one is allowed to snatch it from me. The master of the Shinryu sect transformed into a 5-clawed golden dragon and rushed over as well. The Sky Piercer halberd is perfect for my sect to cultivate. If anyone tries to snatch it from me, I will fight them to the death. The group of people were like sharks that smell blood, falling into a frenzy one after another. Although Li Changsheng had a lot of magic treasures, there were too many people who wanted to snatch them. Almost in the blink of an eye, those magic treasures were all snatched away. The Imperial Lord of Great Yu, who had snatched the Tiandu sword, had a look of joy on his face. He tried to channel a thread of divine sense into the sword to refine it, but found that his divine sense was instantly pulverized. How could this be? Logically speaking, an ownerless object should be easy to refine. Could it be that Li Changsheng didn't die? When this thought arose, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu's face instantly turned unsightly, but soon he shook his head. Impossible. How could he not die from such a powerful lightning tribulation? And his body was indeed reduced to ashes. It must be that the level of this magic treasure is too high, and I haven't found a way to refine it, so I encountered an obstacle. At the thought of this, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu's eyes lit up. Previously, when he fought Li Changsheng, he had already seen the power of the Tiandu sword. Not only the Imperial Lord of Great Yu, but the others also found that the magic treasures in their hands were difficult to refine, but they had the same idea as the Imperial Lord of Great Yu. Moreover, after obtaining the treasures, they did not dare to stay here any longer. One by one, they turned into streams of light and ran in all directions. Seeing these people running away, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu's eyes flashed with a fierce light. If it weren't for the fact that the 3 legions of Vermilion Bird, White Tiger, and Azure Dragon had scattered to avoid the lightning tribulation, these people would not dare to snatch the magic treasures. But there's no hurry. When the Du dynasty conquers the world, in the end, they will have to obediently hand over their magic treasures. After saying that, the Imperial Lord of Great Yu turned and left. He needed to find a new place to establish his country. After all, the thousands of miles of the Du dynasty's martial world were destroyed in the lightning tribulation. Now, although the lightning tribulation had disappeared, this place had become a scorched land. It was desolate and unsuitable for cultivation. 3 months after the Imperial Lord of Great Yu and the others left, a whirlpool suddenly formed in the originally desolate place, and then a figure stepped out of the whirlpool. After the lightning tribulation that day, my body was seriously injured. I had no choice but to pretend that I died in the lightning tribulation and threw out all my magic treasures to confuse everyone. These people were really fooled and did not search carefully. Now that I have recovered to my peak state, it's time to get my things back. Li Changxing's black hair fluttered in the wind, and each strand of hair made a clanging sound. They were as strong as flying swords. He stood there and let out a soft moan. After this lightning tribulation, his fiend God Supreme body had finally entered the first revolution, and at this time, he had also stepped into the Earth immortal realm. The major forces of Devil Sky Galaxy are nothing to be afraid of. Only the 3 legions of the Dayu dynasty and the 90,000 Earth immortals are terrifying. Even if I pass the heavenly tribulation, it will not be easy to face them head-on. It seems that I have to find a way to defeat them one by one. With my current strength, I can easily escape from the 3 legions. Li Changsheng compared his strength and suddenly remembered that he had been recuperating here for a long time. What if the Chinese people's tribes were in danger? The Imperial Lord of Great, you had repeatedly said that he would destroy the Chinese people's tribes. Thinking of this, he did not dare to delay any longer. Immediately, his body turned into a shadow and flew toward the Chinese people's tribes. After passing the lightning tribulation, Li Changxing's strength had reached a new level. His speed was also extremely fast. In less than half an hour, he had arrived at the Chinese people's tribes. However, when he landed, he found that the place where the Chinese people's tribes used to be was desolate. There was no sign of people at all. Because the fluctuations of his lightning tribulation were too great, it had affected the entire Devil Sky Galaxy. The cultivation environment of the Chinese people's tribes had also been affected, and it had become unsuitable for cultivation. They should have moved away. I hope the Chinese people's tribes can hide and not be destroyed by the Imperial Lord of Great Yu's people. But how can I find the Chinese people's tribes? If the Chinese people's tribes want to hide, they will not let the people of Devil Sky Galaxy know. Li Changxing frowned and fell in a deep thought. Forget it. Since I can't find the Chinese people's tribes, it will be much easier to find the Dayu dynasty's tribes. If I can find the Dayu dynasty, I will know if the Chinese people's tribes are in trouble. Thinking of this, he would stop. Li Changxing flew toward the south at full speed. As long as he went to any power, it would not be difficult to find out the location of the Dayu dynasty. Today, he had become an Earth immortal. The reincarnation of 99 lives had finally come to an end. From now on, he would begin a new journey. The end of the story. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.